Right now, you're watching this because something in your relationship isn't where it needs to be. And today, everything changes. We're going live, baby.
We'll do it live.
You're listening to the premier podcast for men who want to not only be better with women, but want to be better men in general. This is the Come On Man podcast. And here's your host,
Paul Bauer.
Paul Bauer.
Paul Bauer.
Paul Bauer.
Paul Bauer.
Paul Bauer.
Paul Bauer. He is a certified master life coach and NLP practitioner.
It's true. It's damn true. What it do, baby? It's hump day again. If you are new to the channel, my name is Paul Bauer. I help men level up and get better with women. And the funny thing about doing that is it tends to make us better men in all areas of our lives. You're already here, which means part of you already knows today is different. Right now, as you're watching this, you're the kind of man who doesn't settle for average. And that's exactly why what we're covering today is going to hit you differently than anything you've heard before. You've probably sat through content that dances around the real stuff. You've heard the surface level advice, the vague motivational talk, the stuff that sounds good but doesn't actually change anything when you get home. And you're still watching, still looking, because somewhere you know there's a version of this that actually works. Today, we're going into that version. We're talking about what actually happens inside a woman's mind when a man knows what he's doing, why most men never figure it out, and what you could do starting today to become the man she can't stop thinking about. By the time this episode is over, you're going to walk away with something most men never get handed to them. So stay with me until the end. Before we get into it, though, I wanted to let everyone know that, and I let the guys in Wolfpack know, and I put it out on social media last night, but I wanted to tell you guys that I updated the cover of Psychology Paradigm. It's something that's been gnawing at me for a really long time. The late, great R.P. Thor, who came up with the concept of the Essential Skills of a Masculine Presence series, designed the cover, and I've never liked this cover. And it's not, obviously I like looking at myself because I'm a narcissist, right? But the reason why is because it's not centered right. And also all this wording, there's too much wording down here. And, Huds and I were trying to get Thor not to put all this text on the cover because it takes away from the cover. And he was insistent on that being there, and it was his project. So we're like, all right, whatever. But Thor left us a little over a year ago, and I figured it's time. It's time. Like it or not, we're not supposed to judge books by their cover, but everyone literally does. And book sales are largely based on the cover design, and that's not the best it could be. So last night I generated a new cover design. Just wanted to show it to you guys here now so you can take a look at it. It's slowly updating on Amazon's end. It looks like it's updated on Audible's end already, but it might take a couple of days if you've been thinking about getting this book but you just didn't like the cover. This is the new cover, and I went with is an image of Marcus Aurelius, because a lot of what we talk about in the Essential Skills of a Masculine Presence series is Stoicism, and Marcus Aurelius was a very famous Stoic, so I wanted to have that imagery there. The storm inside his mind is sort of a symbol of of our paradigms, the programming that we have that's keeping us where we are in life. So this is the new cover. It's slowly rolling out. If you've been thinking about getting that book, wait a day or two and then order it. And then this should be the one that comes in the mail if you've been thinking about getting it. We're not talking about that today. Today we're talking about a subject that deep down has men terrified, right? It's the alpha widow phenomenon. And this is why men obsess about body counts, why many men give up on women altogether, because deep down in their heart of hearts, they don't think they're good enough to compete with her past. Okay. If you really want to be honest with yourself, that's the real concern with the alpha widow phenomenon, is guys don't think that they can measure up to the previous guy. Okay. So what is an alpha widow? If you guys have never heard this expression, Rollo coined the phrase years ago, but it's essentially the woman who pines after the love of her life, the guy who left an imprint on her very soul. Think Rose from the Titanic, right? She pined for Jack for 80 some odd years after cheating on her fiance with him. So, right, that's the guy that she couldn't get over. Okay, so let's take an objective look at this today. Okay, you can't, or rather, she can't be alpha widowed by a guy that she's already forgotten. Okay. She can't be alpha widowed by a guy she's already forgotten. Most of the guys she's been with, if you think about it, were probably average, meaning she barely remembers them. And average doesn't leave a mark the same way a man who actually knew what he was doing does. Okay. Once you start studying this type of material, a good example is in the book, How to Be a 3% Man. Okay. One of the things that Corey points out is that 97% of guys are average at best. At best. Okay. There's only 3% of the world's population of men that actually understands women and how attraction really works. The rest of the guys are just winging it, and they're not doing as good as you think they are. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean that there wasn't a natural in her past at some point that she's constantly thinking about. Okay. But the alpha widow phenomenon, it requires a genuine impact to trigger it. A guy who fumbled around the dark for 4 minutes didn't put an imprint on her. He just left. Okay. So the odds of her really having one is probably pretty slim to begin with. Okay. It's not totally gone. But the thing is that the more you consume red pill content, the more you're going to start filtering every chick you see through that lens that, oh, no, she's probably been alpha widowed. Yeah. Oh, just look at her. She's got that 1,000. I can't say it. We're not quite at the 8-minute mark. She's got that 1,000 peen stare, like. Okay. But I want you to realize that most guys aren't at that level. Most guys aren't. And so and if her body count was not even that high to begin with, which there's tons of those women out there. A lot of you guys read or watch a lot of this content and you think, oh, okay, like yesterday's content, for instance, right? We were talking about Michael's story, and Michael was talking about how in his perception, college was we're past the 8-minute mark now. In his perception, college was a 24/7 fuck fest for these women, and that they racked up body counts in at least the double digits, if not the triple digits, while they were in college. And so they're all like that. That's not true. A lot of women are serial monogamists, like a lot of you guys. Okay, they will get into a relationship and be with that guy for a couple of years, and so. Yeah, she's getting banged out all the time, but it's by one guy, and he might not even be that good. He's just, the best that's available at the time, until she finds that he's not her best option anymore. And then she goes and trades up, because that's hypergamy, right? But then she just gets into the next relationship. Okay. You guys gotta understand, there's a red pill article years ago that was called Hypergamy is Monogamy. Hypergamy is monogamy, right? It's women want to consolidate on one guy if they can. Okay. They really do want to be in a monogamous relationship. They don't want to be, they don't want to be polygamous like most guys. Now, some of you guys are going to be like, I don't know, these modern women, they all want to be polyamorous and stuff like that. That's not the majority. Okay. That's not the majority of women. Most of them just want to be in a single relationship. So they'll be serial monogamists, and they might trade guys up every couple of years. And if that's the case, their body counts only that might be in the single digits. Okay. It might be. All right. And if you think that 97% of guys are average at best, that means that a vast majority of the guys that she's experienced probably haven't been all that great. Okay. So just the odds alone of her being completely alpha widowed are pretty low to begin with, in my opinion. All right. But let's just say she did meet a Chad, or she did meet a Tyrone, as you guys like to say. Okay. Just because that guy was, the guy that blew her mind up to that point, and that's the guy she thinks about, doesn't mean that the next guy, or even you, can't blow her mind even better. Okay. So that's the goal. That's the goal of the new book, Dick Her Down Right, is to be that guy, to be the guy that creates alpha widows. Okay. This is the alpha widow creation manual. All right. And if you find a gal and you start dating her and you dick her down right, she's not going to remember anything. She's going to be so dickmatized that you're going to be the one that she thinks about. Now, it's not just about technique. This book isn't just a technique book. Okay. There's lots of techniques in there, and a lot of them come from my good friend, Eric Everhard, legendary porn star. God damn it. That's going to cause me to lose money on. They're going to demonetize this because I used the P word. Legendary adult film star, Eric Everhard. All of his techniques are in here. They're all named. They're all called out. He wrote the foreword for the book. If you want to continue down that path, there's a QR code in the book where you can join his Everhard Academy and get 14 days free, right? But there's other techniques in here that occupy her mind. There's NLP techniques in this book that get you in her head so that she's thinking about you all the time, that we eventually want to get her addicted to you. You become, as Rollo says in the Player's Handbook, you become her dopamine drug dealer. Okay. That's the goal of the book. And that's what we're talking about today. And that's how you out alpha a previous alpha. Okay. By the way, guys, do be sure to like, subscribe, hit those notifications. I have new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday without fail. This weekend, I'm going up to my family's property up north in northern Colorado. And, we go up there every year to fix the fence line. So Friday's episode is going to be live. And then as soon as I'm done cutting clips for it, I'm heading up there. And I'm coming back Sunday night. So Monday's episode should be live too. And if it's not, it's going to be fucking late because I'm not ready for it. I'm actually going to try to get all the show notes and everything prepared for it on Thursday, or tomorrow rather. So here's the thing. A lot of guys just don't understand this, right? But she's never going to tell you that the sex is bad. She's never going to tell you. Okay. She's not going to sit you down, hand you a critique, step-by-step thing saying, okay, you need to improve in this area. In the bean diddling area, you need to improve there. What she's going to do instead is just slowly start mentally checking out, stop initiating, start being tired all the time, and slowly remove herself from the situation while you're still trying to figure out what changed. Like, you're still trying to bang her. She doesn't want to bang anymore. You're just going to get frustrated and stuff like that. She's telling you suck in bed. She's telling you that. Okay. A woman that you're absolutely blowing her mind in the bedroom, she's going to want it more, not less. Okay. So she wants it less. You're not blowing her skirt up anymore. Okay. Women talk to each other about this constantly. Okay. They have their besties. They tell their besties everything. The thing is that women don't want us talking about them. They want to know that their sexuality is safe with us and that we don't chatter about it with our friends, but they don't follow their own advice. They tell their besties everything. Okay. So her best friend probably knows more about your bedroom performance than you do. And they're talking about that shit over wine. They're complaining about that shit. Then they're talking about how they'd rather diddle their bean with a vibrator, right? But they won't tell you. And then but the thing is that if they told you, how would you react to it? Be honest with yourself. How would you react if they told you were trash in bed? You would get offended by that, right? Which is why they don't tell you, because most guys can't handle constructive criticism. Okay. So the guy who's going to wait for her to communicate that she's not getting her needs met in the bedroom, you're going to be that guy in the meme where you're sitting on the park bench as a skeleton. All right. You're going to fucking die before she tells you that you suck in bed. Okay. It's never coming. So the guy who figures this out is the guy who takes it upon himself, takes some initiative, really realizes that, you know what? There's always room for improvement. Why don't I start studying how to be better at this? Okay. Because I'll tell you what, I was like most of you guys out there. All right. I thought, my game's pretty good. I've never had any complaints. You know, women seem to be pretty satisfied in bed, but women are very good at acting. They're really good at faking the orgasms and stuff like that. They're really good at doing their leg shake right at the right time just to make you think, right, that everything's good, right? You guys that think you're making girls squirt all the time, they're just pissing on you to make you stop. Okay, we did a whole episode on that last Tuesday, right? So you might think that you're doing just fine, but once you start studying this stuff, you're going to realize that there's a whole lot of shit you didn't know. Okay, I came to that realization when I first met Eric Everhard. The way Eric and I met was I used to have a profile on a website called Matchmaker.fm, which is a site to match guests with podcast hosts. And so Eric actually reached out to me on that platform because he was promoting his book at the time, Unleash Your Sexual Superpowers, which is a phenomenal book. And so he sent me a free copy of that. I found the audio version and listened to it before I interviewed him. And as I'm listening to the audiobook, it's just blowing my mind, all the stuff I didn't even know, right? All the stuff I didn't know, like he goes into, and I talk about it in Dick Her Down Right, is, like women can fake all sorts of things, but they can't fake clitoral stimulation. And once I realized that, I really started paying attention to what was going on down there. And you could actually feel it. You could feel whether her clit is flaccid or not, or whether it's erect. Okay. It's like a little tiny peen down there. Right. Now it's kind of gross to think of it that way, but that's essentially what it is. It's it's very similar, and it gets erect when it's aroused. Okay. Just like you get erect when you're aroused, and you get flaccid when you're not aroused so much, right? And have you ever tried having sex when your dick starts getting flaccid? You start pushing rope up there. It's not happening. Okay. Same thing with her. If it's not stimulated, it's not really happening. She's not going to get anywhere. So you want to make sure that you're diddling that bean properly, even when you're penetrating her. If you're in it at an angle where you're not making contact with her clit, like, women really like when they are on top. Women get really self-conscious about how they look when they're on top. So a lot of them don't want to do it just because they're self-conscious and they're in their head about it. But one of the reasons why women tend to like getting on top is because they're able to do a grinding motion, right, with your pubic bone, and that actually is stimulating that clit, right? Well, if you're at an angle where you're not even touching that, she's not getting the full sensation. You might be hitting the G spot, which is a good thing, right? If you're at the right angle, you're hitting up and you're going in and up. You're hitting that G spot area, and then the clitoris actually isn't just the tip there. It actually extends down around the sides as well. So you might be stimulating that thing, but the bean's not getting diddled. So you might want to go down there with a thumb and diddle that bean a little bit, or maybe encourage her to diddle her own bean while you're doing that stuff, right? Like don't get all up in your head like, oh, you're diddling your bean, am I not doing it right? Like it's all about creating an experience, okay? So maybe you do know that, okay? Maybe you do know that, but did you know that you can, at the point of orgasm, set an emotional anchor subconsciously in her brain, so that she starts associating orgasm, or associating you specifically with orgasms, so that when you say certain things to her or you touch her arm in a certain way, she starts immediately thinking about sex? Did you know that? Most guys didn't know about that. Okay. Like, talk about that kind of shit in the book. All right. But she's never going to tell you that sex is bad. You need to take it upon yourself, take some initiative to start studying some of this stuff. So let me ask you guys, be honest in the comments. Have you ever suspected she was comparing you to someone else and just never said anything? Drop a below if you're watching the replay. Okay. Is my video like cutting in now? I just saw some kind of warning sign for a second there across the top. Did I blip out or something? Let me know in the chat too. But drop a 1 in the chat for yes or 2 for no if you ever suspected that she was comparing you to someone else. Okay. So let's talk about the performing man versus the present man, because a lot of guys fall in the performing man category. Okay. There's a version of bad sex that seems fine from the outside, right? The guy's technically doing all the right things, but she can tell that you're not actually there. You're not actually there. You're not in the moment with her. You're not being present with her. Okay. Because the attention's on yourself. Maybe you're focusing on slowing your pace so that you don't come too fast, or maybe you're in your head thinking about a hotter chick because you're banging you're banging a slump buster or something like that. Whatever it is, she can feel that you're not present with her. Okay. So when you're not performing, the contrast to this is every decision you make is running through. I'm sorry, rather, when you are performing, every decision you make is running through a filter that says of what you're doing says about you instead of what she actually needs. You understand? A good example of this, and I'm not trying to call anybody out here, but it's just a really great example, and I'm not going to name names. But there was a guy in the pack, and a while back he's talking about how he's dicking his girl down right, and he's pounding her hard and all this kind of stuff. When you're doing that, and you're sort of envisioning yourself as the adult film star, the guy who's jackhammering that vag and stuff like that, and you think you're doing a great job, you're probably not, because in the moment you're performing like you're trying to put on a performance like you're this adult film star, and you're not diddling her being right. You're not present in the moment, figuring out what's actually working for her. Okay. I hope that makes more sense. Okay. So presence means your attention is entirely on her body, her responses, what's working right now. And the second that you start monitoring yourself, you've already sort of checked out. Okay. You're making it more about you. Now, there's some nuance to all this kind of stuff too, right? Because in the space we talk about being more of a selfish lover, right? And that's something that Dr. Glover teaches in Dating Essentials for Men. He says, it's every adult's responsibility to make sure they're getting their needs met in the bedroom. And when you're working on nice guy syndrome, I think that's actually good advice. Okay, because what ends up happening then is you're putting her experience above yours at all costs, and that ends up putting a lot of pressure on her, because you're dealing this, and you're like, do you like this? Does this feel good for you? Did you have an orgasm? Right? Like, you start checking in with her to make sure she's feeling good. And what ends up happening is it puts a lot of pressure on her, and she starts getting up in her head about it, and it takes her out of the experience, right? So if you stop doing that and you become more of a selfish lover, you stop asking those types of questions and just focus on getting your needs met, at least for a while, that'll break that bad habit. But it does behoove you to create a really great experience for her. Okay. So once you can get to that point where you're not doing all that, because really what you're doing is you're trying to make it about you, right? Like, I want to make sure that you feel good because I want to be seen as the great lover, right? So that puts a lot of pressure on her. But when you really are a great lover, you could do all those things without getting her in her head about it. You want to draw her attention down to the experience. You want to draw her attention and focus down to the sensations you're creating for her. Okay. So a part of that is, doing the technical stuff, but a part of it also is dirty talk, right? Painting word pictures in her mind, explaining what's going on, right? Drawing her attention down to the sensations. You could do that simply by describing in her ear, and I recommend doing it in her left ear, but in a whispered tone, like describing what you're doing to her in the moment, right? Like, do you feel that? Do you feel how deep that is in there? Do you feel Like, your pussy's so fucking wet right now. Like, all that kind of stuff, right? Try not to get demonetized, guys. It's hard to not get demonetized when you're talking about this kind of stuff. But when you're doing that, you're actually drawing her attention down to the sensations as opposed to up in her analytical brain, you know, and that's when she can start feeling this stuff, right? Okay. So that's the difference between a guy who is, who's being present in the moment, who's, you know, checking her, what she's doing and painting this picture for her, it being present versus a guy who's, you know, trying to put on a show for her. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Okay. But you guys, you're still watching right now, and that tells me something about you. It tells me you're not the guy who hears something that could change everything and just scrolls past it. You're the guy who leans in. As you've been sitting here today, something's been building because you know that the alpha widow phenomenon isn't a death sentence. It's a blueprint. You know that the guy she can't forget wasn't magic. He was just the best she had had up till that point. And that ceiling, it can be raised, which means right now, the only thing standing between you and being the man she compares every future experience to is information, specific, applicable, field-tested information about exactly how her body and her mind work together and how to use that knowledge to make what happens between you two so far beyond anything in her past that the comparison stops being a threat and starts being your greatest asset. That's exactly what Dick Her Down Right gives you. Every time you read it, you're stacking another layer of knowledge that translates directly into her experience. Every technique you absorb becomes a reason she stays. Every page you apply makes you harder to walk away from. Men who read this book don't wonder anymore whether they're enough. They already know. The link's in the description and in the chat. Get it today, guys. Have you ever had sex and honestly wondered, did she actually enjoy that, or was she just going along with it? Because chances are she's had better and she remembers it. What if I told you there's a way to make sure you're the one she can't stop thinking about? Most guys think good sex is about stamina or size. It's not. The men women are genuinely obsessed with aren't the biggest or the longest lasting. They're the ones who know exactly what they're doing. They're not fumbling around hoping something works. They walk in with a plan. They read her body. They control the whole experience from the first move to the last. And when it's over, she's not thinking about sleep. That's not some rare natural talent. That's a skill set, and it can be learned. Dick Her Down Right is the no-nonsense manual that breaks down exactly how women's bodies and minds work during sex, how to take charge of the experience like you actually know what you're doing, and how to become the man she's telling her friends about. Not the guy she had an okay time with, the guy she keeps coming back to, the guy she'd do almost anything to keep happy because what he does to her is in a category by itself. Every technique, every approach, every psychological principle is laid out straight. No theory, no filler, just the real information that makes the difference between average and unforgettable. Dick Her Down Right is available on Amazon or Audible now. Any man who wants to be better in bed and have any woman he's with completely hooked on him needs this book. Get it today. Indeed. Let me take a look at the chat here. Y'all are pretty quiet today, though. Y'all are like, I ain't answering that fucking question. Ty says, good morning, guys. Good to see you, brother. And R. Lopez Jr. sent a fire emoji. Nurse Chick's in the house. She says, good morning, gentlemen. Happy hump day. Nurse Chick always gets this.
I'm so naughty.
She is.
I'm gonna come.
Oh, I will.
That pussy must be ridiculous.
Guys, it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And then Dar Fitness is in the house. He says smashing that like button is alpha. That's true. Yeah. If as you guys are watching this, I'd like to bring your awareness down to this area because I think that's where the like button is. Go ahead and smash that while you're down there, will you? All right. Now here's an interesting concept that a lot of guys don't think about. Okay, because they think that being good in the bedroom is it only matters in the bedroom, okay? But it actually doesn't, okay? Because bedroom skills and what it does to your confidence is pretty profound. It actually carries outside in your everyday life. If you know that your girl is getting dick down right, that she's obsessed with your junk, right? She wants it all the time. She's craving it all the time. That actually boosts a man's confidence, and it carries into his work day. He has a better work day. He gets better deals done and stuff like that. Okay. He's you know, he takes that confidence into the boardroom. You know, one of the things that Napoleon Hill talks about in Think and Grow Rich is that very successful men are highly sexual, right? Like they're constantly fucking, and they just feel good about themselves all the time, and they get more done because of it, right? Like look at really successful men. Now, some of you guys might say, well, they have money, so that's why that's happening. For some of them, maybe, right? But a lot of the guys, the reason why women were drawn to them in the first place was because they had that raw sexuality that drew these chicks in, and then that raw sexuality also just carried into everyday life. Okay, so when you know you're good in bed, something changes in how you carry yourself with women in general. You stop being the guy who's internally nervous about whether she'll want to come back. Okay. You're just naturally more confident around women, but you're also more confident at work too. The flip side is also true. A man who knows he's not delivering where it counts starts compensating in other areas, buying things, bending over backwards, doing favors, and she can sense all this kind of stuff. All right. So that confidence comes from being genuinely skilled in the bedroom, and it shows up everywhere. It shows up everywhere else in your relationship. She respects you more. She tests you less. The whole dynamic gets easier without you having to force it. Okay. Like sex really is the glue that keeps a relationship together. And if you're not laying the pipe right, it's going to fizzle out. She's just going to not want to do it anymore. You're going to drift into a roommate situation, and and everything's going to go to hell in a handbasket. Now, some of that stuff is your behavior over time, you know, going through the betaization process, which we talk about and Get Her to Fuck You Again. But if women are being honest, you know, a lot of women, you know, a whole lot of filing for irreconcilable differences, a lot of that comes down to you just not getting the job done in the bedroom. You know, there's a reason why women will go out and fuck the pool boy, you know, because he's hot, he's better at sex than you are, you know. Like women, they really ideally want to get alpha fucks and beta bucks in the same relationship. But if they can't get it in one relationship, they'll settle for two, right? So they might settle down and live with and be marry the beta bucks guy and then go fuck the pool boy, you know? So, because a lot of guys think that the alpha fucks is about money. It's not. It's about sexual attractiveness, right? And who's laying the pipe better? Who's diddling the bean better? Okay. So you want, ideally, if you want to be in an LTR that works, you have to be the bean diddler. You have to be the bean diddler, not just the provider guy. Okay. This might be a short episode today. We'll see. But guys, if something clicked for you today, the one thing that separates the men who actually do something from the men who just watch is right there when you click that super chat. All right. Consider sending one. A lot of guys are having average sex. They don't know it. All right. So the fake orgasm thing, and this goes back to she'll never tell you, right? The fake orgasm is more common than most guys want to think about. And she's not doing it to be mean. She's not doing it to be insincere. She's not doing it to be, you know, to really for any nefarious reason. She's often doing it just to end the encounter and spare you the embarrassment and the awkwardness of the truth. And you're walking away thinking you did everything great. Right now, like I said at the beginning, women can fake everything in the bedroom except clitoral stimulation. Okay, so you guys think you're laying the pipe down because she's squirting, or her eyes are rolling back in her head, or her legs are twitching and quivering and stuff like that. Women are really great actresses. They know how to do it. That's the whole reason why in the movie What is it? When Harry Met Sally, I think it was When Harry Met Sally, and Meg Ryan did the whole orgasm thing in the restaurant. She was showing him that, he doesn't know if he's truly doing it well, because she's like, well, how do you know you're doing it well? And he's like, oh, come on. He's like, I know. Trust me. And she just starts faking an orgasm right there in the restaurant just to show him. That's most women. 62% of women, when asked anonymously, because they will never tell you, right? Like, they will never tell you this stuff. But when they're anonymous, they're very honest. And 62% of women are absolutely unhappy with their relationship. So they settle for, dirty sex novels and a vibrator. They would much rather get their needs met that way than to try to bruise your ego at all. Okay. So adequate sex is basically invisible over time. It fills the space. Nobody's fighting about it. Nobody's raving about it either. And invisible over time becomes a real problem in the relationship. Like I said, the way it plays out is sex starts becoming infrequent because it's not a pleasurable experience for her. So she tries to avoid it at all costs. She starts having a headache every fucking night. It's like a goddamn medical mystery, right? And most guys assume they're doing fine because she hasn't complained. She hasn't said anything about it. And if she did, you would get pissed about it. So she doesn't, right? So just because she hasn't said anything, it's not a passing grade. It's her just not wanting to have a conversation with you. And if you're really honest with yourself, it's a conversation you can't probably handle. Okay. Now, if you could handle it, that would be a different story. that would be a different story, right? If you're like, okay, I could take some constructive criticism. What do you like? What would you prefer? And she tells you, and then she says, yeah, I don't like when you do this, and I don't like when you do that. If you're like, well, that's my best move. What do you mean? Do you see where I'm going with this? Okay. So you've got to understand how her physiology actually works to understand what's really happening in the moment. Okay. Now, you've been watching this whole episode, which means you already understand something most men around you never will. You've been taking this in, turning it over, connecting it to your own situation. And right now, as you sit here, something is becoming clear that wasn't clear before you press play today. And here's what that means. A man who starts thinking this way doesn't go backwards. Once you see the mechanics of how attraction and desire actually work, you can't unsee them. And the moment you can't unsee them, you start wanting to go deeper. You start asking questions, better questions. You start looking around at who else is asking those questions. Oh man, did my video just totally shit the bed? Guys, drop a 1 in the chat if my video just totally shit the bed, because it shit the bed on my end here. Good Lord. Here, let me go ahead and play a commercial and let me drop out and then come back in and see if that fixes things. Hold on 1 second. Let's play this. Go ahead and join the wolf pack, guys, while you're at it. Bear Club? Not anymore.
Wolf pack! You fix what's broken. You lead like a man again. No pity, no therapy. Just fire, just flame. Cold bed, broken home, midlife drift, feeling alone. You don't need hacks, blogs, lies. You need men with fire in their eyes. We rebuild from the ground up. No excuses, no soft stuff. Telegram lit 24/7. Brothers locked in steel, not heaven. Step inside the pack. We don't fall, we attack. Truth, fire, presence, we bring it back. Masculine pride, no time to slack. Step inside the pack. Drop your past, claim your track. No therapy talk, no playing small. We sharpen blades, we take it all.
Yeah, it looks like my camera, let's see. It says it can't access my camera. Let's try to switch this. Let's try to change this back here. Hold on 1 second, guys. We might just finish it this way, which is fine. But let me just try one more thing real quick. because what happened is my chair bumped my desktop, and for whatever reason, when I do that, sometimes it fucking jiggles the USB. I don't know. Hold on one second. Let me uninstall this device. See if we can do that. And then let's see if we can scan for hardware changes and see if it pops back in. This is what happens when you have a live show. Okay, let's see. If this doesn't work, we'll just move on and we'll just do it from an audio, and that'll be fine. Not ideal, but you know, is what it is. Yeah, I don't think it's going to work. Okay. So anyway, join the wolf pack. So let me take a look at the chat here while we're in here. You guys can still hear me okay though, right? Let's see here. Dar Fitness says, happy Wednesday, gents. Smashing that like button is alpha. You have to be the bean diddler. Sounds like a Batman villain spelled incorrectly on purpose. Yes. Drop a 1 in the chat. Okay, so you have thought about that. All right. Yeah. Paul looks like a character from the 80s video game. Somebody call the IT guy. We're having technical issues. You know, God, I wish there was an IT guy around here, but the only IT guy around here is fucking retired. So that video camera is ridiculous. Oh, hold on. This is what I'm going to say about the camera.
You're weak as shit and call yourself an alpha. Like, get fucked.
Get fucked. Yeah, get fucked. All right, let's move on here, and we'll just try to wrap this up quickly. So the alpha widow concept's being used as an excuse to get up. All right, give up. Now, here's the thing. We were having this chat in Wolfpack yesterday, day before yesterday, about toxic red pill content, and one of the guys was saying that the primary shows that he watches was Rollo, Rich Cooper, and Coach CGA, and he started to realize that a lot of that content was really creating a negative lens that he was filtering his relationship through, and so he's taking a break from all of that. And I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. And I go, the thing is about Rollo, though, is if you are really discerning with what he says, he's not this nihilistic anti-woman guy that a lot of people sort of think he is based on, you know, the sound bites that they hear. You know, they might, you know, read the Iron Rules of Tomasi and think that he hates women or something like that. But he doesn't. In fact, he's been married for over 30 years now, I think. Right. So the thing is, you've got to be really discerning about what Rollo says. And I personally think that Rollo's content is best consumed through his books. If you read his books, you'll really get a fundamental idea of what he's talking about. But if you just get the sound bites, all you hear is, you know, women ain't shit, right? Women ain't shit. And I'll tell you this too, a caveat as well, just to be aware of. And it's something that once you realize it's happening, you can sort of look past it, right? But if you listen to his first 3 audiobooks, which is the original Rational Male, Preventive Medicine, and Positive Masculinity, I think those are the first 3. A guy named Sam Bada was the voice for those. And the way Sam read it, and Sam's a great guy, so this isn't an indictment on Sam, but the way Sam read it and the tone of voice that he used made everything Rollo said sound very condescending as fuck, right? And so the thing is that whether we admit it or not, tone does impact how we perceive the information that we're taking. It does paint a lens, right? And so it does, his cynical, condescending tone makes it all out to sound like women ain't shit, right? And so if you listen to it from that lens, you're not getting the information as Rollo really intended it. But if you get the paperback version and read it with Rollo's voice in mind, it doesn't sound that way at all. Okay. It's fascinating when you take a good hard look at that. Okay. But if you go back and read Rollo's, and you could do a Google search for this, like Rational Male, you know, Alpha Widow, because Rollo's first book, it's all available online for free. If you go to rationalmale.com, his whole book is essentially the first year of his blog. And it's all just, condensed into a book form. That's how he did it. Okay. But if you go back and read that, Rollo's original point wasn't that every woman is permanently broken by her past. He was just describing a real phenomenon, but some guys have weaponized it into a reason to not even try, or to just constantly in the back of their mind think that they're not living up to their girl standards, which is really a self-defeating mindset. If you think about it, okay? Not every woman you're going to meet has had a transformative experience with some high value guy who ruined her for everyone else. Most of the men she's been with were mediocre, and mediocre really just doesn't leave an impression like that. Okay. And then even if she did have a guy that she compares everyone to, that's just because everyone else sucked. Okay. If you can out alpha that guy, okay, you can still imprint on her. Now, a lot of guys worry about body count. They start looking at statistics. They go, oh, well, a girl's ability to pair bond gets decreased over time. Yeah, women do tend to get desensitized if they have had a lot of previous dicks, right? Because the thing is with a dopamine type addiction is, and that's really what it is, right? When they're they have a lot of promiscuous situations, they're getting flooded with these neurochemicals, and their body eventually just gets desensitized to the neurochemicals over time. But that doesn't mean that you can't re-stimulate those things later using certain techniques, NLP, some of the stuff that we talk about, or that I talk about in the new book. Okay. You can actually create this experience for her where you start bringing these experiences back. It's a lot of using the body and mind connection. Okay. And most of you guys aren't doing that. It's all physical for you. The whole thing is a physical experience for you. When you're banging her, you're not even making a noise. We talked about that last week, about how a lot of guys, they're just trained when they're, jerking off in their bedroom as teenagers to be quiet because they don't want their parents to find out. Right. So when you get conditioned for that, you take that into your actual sexual experience, you're silent the whole time, which just tells her like she's trying to feed off your energy. And to her, it feels like you're not into it. you're basically just using her vagina as a glorified fleshlight. And so getting her into the whole experience with the, at the bare minimum moaning and groaning, right? But start doing some of this dirty talk, start describing the experience. And the dirty talk, I give examples from in the book. For some of you guys, you're going to go, there's no way that works. There's no way that works. But I'll tell you what, it fucking does work. Okay. Because if you look at what the dirty talk looks like in some of these cheesy sex novels that your girl's diddling her bean to, that's exactly how the guys talk. Okay. And what we're essentially doing is using what these dirty, trashy sex novels do. And I'll tell you what it does. Okay. If you're reading a novel, okay, I want you to imagine that you're reading a novel for a moment. What happens as you're reading the novel? The words, and I'm talking about sitting down reading, okay? It works similarly with the audio, right? But when you're sitting down reading, what tends to happen is you're reading the page, but then you start forming a mental image of what all the words are saying, okay? As soon as your imagination's engaged and you're painting this picture in your mind, you're actually in a trance state. It's actually a form of hypnosis. Okay. You're in a trance state whenever you're visualizing something that's not in the real world. And the words on the page start disappearing as you're doing it. And all you're seeing is this story playing out in real time. You're still reading it, right? But your mind is giving you a visualization of what's happening. It's almost like a movie in your mind. You're in a trance state at that point. Okay. And so when women are reading these dirty, cheesy, sleazy novels, they're essentially putting themselves in that experience in their mind, and it's painting this very vivid picture for them with all the dirty talk that's going on, all the very descriptive scenes of what's happening with the sex scene and stuff like that. She's picturing this in her head, and that's getting her aroused. So imagine if you're already doing this stuff to her physically, and you're in her ear whispering these same types of things. She's going to start in her mind picturing this very vivid experience. She's going to get more aroused, right? That arousal is going to start building up that sensation. She's going to start feeling it down there. It's going to start growing, expanding very rapidly. Okay. And as that's growing and it's filling up her whole body, she's imagining this in her head and feeling it at the same time. Do you see where this is going? It's magic. Okay. We're essentially, casting a spell on her that's creating this experience for her that no other guy, vast majority of guys don't do. A vast majority of guys are two pump chumps, and they're done. They're done after 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes at best. And it's all just one big physical experience where you hit it and quit it and roll over and go to sleep. And she's just left sitting there going, fuck, I guess I'm going to go read this cheesy sex novel with my Hitachi wand, right? So you want to use what's in these novels to your advantage and use some of the same concepts while you're giving her this experience. You'll absolutely blow her fucking mind, okay? Don't take my word for this, guys. Try this shit out. By the way, guys, follow me on social media. Well, hold on. Social media. The links are in the description for that. All right. So yeah. So anyway, Rollo's original point about Alpha Widow wasn't so that guys give up and think, oh man, all women are used and thrown away, that they're no good anymore. It was never about that. In fact, we've done Rule Zero episodes. If you go back to my go to my YouTube channel and go to the playlist and look at the Rule Zero playlist, because those were all the episodes that I hosted. I believe those are all the ones that I hosted, or at least most of them anyway, if I remember to put them on the playlist. But we did one on Alpha Widows a while back, and Rollo was on there. And we started talking about how you absolutely can out alpha an alpha. Rollo even says you can. Okay. So don't let the concept of the Alpha Widow thing get in your head so much that you can't perform in the bedroom, because you're now painting this picture of some guy that you've never met that you don't think that you can compete with. Okay. Just get your skills up so good that you know that no other guy can compete with you. All right. That's the goal. And then the Alpha Widow thing is fucking nonsense. All right. Anticipation. I talk about it in all my books. The concept of HEAT, healthy emotional anticipation and tension. Although I didn't use that acronym in the latest book, I really just talk about more of the anticipation factor. Okay. But you got to understand what anticipation is. It's creating dopamine. Okay. You want to be her dopamine drug dealer, and people will get chemically addicted to the dopamine that they're creating. A good example of this is the addiction to scrolling your phone. If you or someone you know, maybe your girl or whatever, is constantly on their phone, always doom scrolling, always got to be on TikTok. TikTok is literally built to be a dopamine drug dealer app. Okay, that's what the whole scrolling thing is. And you'll get into the rhythm of it and won't even realize it. You'll be in a trance going through scrolling. And next thing you know, it's 4 a.m. and you should have gone to bed 4 hours ago, at least, right? That's the same thing. You want to do that for her, but from a sexual angle. Okay. And you do that kind of stuff, not just in the bedroom. You want to create anticipation for her throughout the day. Or if you don't see her for a week, you want to, whenever you do communicate with text, you want to create anticipation. If you live with her, you want to create anticipation a little bit throughout the day. This is where, 2 steps forward, 1 step back comes with Kino escalation. If texting is for logistics for the most part, but it's also for creating emotional buy-in and creating anticipation. It's not for chatting all day, right? But if you send her, like a text message after a wonderful night of knockdown, drag out, indoor Olympics, And the next day you send her a text around noon talking about how you can't get such and such thing out of your mind, and you re-describe that experience to her and you paint it in vivid word pictures, it's going to bring her back to that moment. She's going to start thinking about sex. Okay. And the more she's thinking about that kind of stuff, the more she starts anticipating you, the more dopamine she's building up in her mind, the more she's craving you. And then the next time she sees you, she can't wait to get undressed and start getting fucked again because she loves it so much. Do you understand where we're going with this? Okay. You want to keep anticipation going. It's a part of attraction. Healthy emotional anticipation and tension is the formula that keeps attraction alive in a relationship. All right. So you want to be doing that. A part of that is being unpredictable. Unpredictability keeps her paying attention. When she can predict exactly when and how you're going to initiate sex, her imagination stops working in your favor. When she can't predict your next move, she's always slightly on edge in the best possible way. She knows something's coming. She just doesn't know when or where, and that creates even more anticipation. Okay, you want to keep her guessing. You don't want to just like clockwork, go to bed at 10 o'clock and have sex every night. Okay. Now, a lot of us fall into that routine. So you got to occasionally switch it up, bang her in the back of your truck sometimes. Go on a gondola ride and Telluride and initiate in the gondola because no one else is in there. Right. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about, nurse chick. You know what I'm talking about. Okay. And so you also want to slow things down a little bit. All right. Being able to develop this type of skill where in the moment, because your timeline is shorter than hers, instead of getting in there and getting your needs met really quick, you want to be able to slow things down a little bit. Okay. And start pacing yourself to build anticipation for her and manage her situation. Because once you get her to orgasm at least once, it's really easy to start getting multiple orgasms in there. And you're going to get yours anyway, right? So slow down a little bit. Take your time with her, okay? Start, if you find yourself getting there too quickly, pull out and start, go down and start eating her pussy for a little bit. Like you switch things up, change things up, keep the experience going, okay? There's lots of different things you can do to keep that anticipation going. Sex is the foundation of relationship power. A man who is genuinely good in bed holds a position of real leverage in his relationship. It's a very natural way that comes from being something that she's not finding anywhere else. Okay. If you are truly the best she's ever had in bed, she's not going to want to let that go. Okay. But on the other side, a guy who can't do the job right in the bedroom, he's in a very vulnerable position because, even when everything else looks fine, she might stay for a while out of habit or because you're still providing for her and she doesn't have an easy way out. Okay. But that dissatisfaction builds quietly over time. And that's where things really start becoming problematic. A lot of divorces get filed for irreconcilable differences because of a very long history of sexual dissatisfaction underneath, right? She left because she spent years of not getting what she needed. And that's why a lot of chicks go out and cheat and stuff like that too. Okay. Just because I'm tired of looking at a flashing avatar of my bald ass head, I'm just going to wrap this up here about being the man she brags about. Okay. We talked about it in the beginning, but women talk, they talk to each other. They always have. The guy who knows what he's doing in bed gets talked about in a way that has nothing to do with his looks or his money. And that conversation amongst her friends is the most honest review he's ever going to get. All right. Consistency is what separates a guy who's had one good night from a man who's built something she genuinely can't walk away from. She might be able to rationalize leaving a guy who performed once, or maybe he's, just been adequate, but she can't possibly fathom leaving the guy who delivers every single time. Okay. The man she brags about didn't get there by accident or natural talent. He got there by actually studying how this all works and being willing to apply it. That's the whole premise of why I wrote this book, is so that you can be that guy. All right. Let's go to the chat and then we'll just go ahead and wrap up here because these technical difficulties are bullshit. Dar's Fitness says, I believe Rollo also says somewhere that get what you need from the red pill and get out. Rollo says that. Ryan says that. But, you know, I've talked about this with both of them because it's one of the things I disagree with to a point, right? And I think we're all on the same page because Rollo also agreed with me. What I said is that, you know, the problem with studying this stuff once, getting the tools is that we all think that we got it. We all think that we got it. And then we go back out there. And the thing is that the old neural pathways that created problems for us in the past never truly go away. And so it's very easy for guys to start slipping back into old patterns. I've seen it over the years. I've seen it so many times. I've even seen it with one of my mentors, Dr. Glover. You know, it's out there. Rollo put it out there, but he did an interview last year sometime, and I think he was promoting the book he was associated with, the Big Stick, I think it was called. He didn't write it. One of his licensed students, you know, or I should certified students wrote that book, and then he wrote the foreword for it, and then he went on the campaign trail to help promote it. And in one of the interviews, he was saying that he's in an open marriage, right? Because his current wife, she's not satisfied, and so she's going out and getting hers. And he's like, you know, and he justifies it. He starts deering. He's like, oh, you know, I'm just too old, and you know, to even bother dealing with that. So he still hasn't gotten over his nice guy tendencies. Essentially, it's really unfortunate, right? But I've seen it in the old 3% man group. Guys would be in that group. They would read How to Be a 3% Man long enough to either get into a new relationship or get their ex back. And then they would stop posting in the group and just, you know, leave or whatever. And then they would come back, you know, a couple months later, a year later. And they're like, oh, I'm, you know, got to get back into it. I got to start reading this stuff again because because I left for a while and everything went to hell in a handbasket. And I'm like, why'd you leave? You know, why'd you leave? You know, the work never stops. So I think what we concluded, what we were talking about this on Rule Zero, was that the red pill content in itself, like watching the podcasts all the time, that kind of stuff isn't necessarily that great, you know? And so, yeah, get the information and then start focusing on other stuff for a while, right? Go, you know, but at least once a year, revisit the material so that it's always on the forefront of your mind so that you never fall back on old programming. That's what I would say about it, right? But yeah, stop watching fucking Jerry Springer content like Fresh and Fit or Access Vegas or whatever podcast, like those panel shows where they have the 304s on and they hold them accountable and kick them off the show and stuff like that. Although they don't do that on Access Vegas, but they definitely do that on Fresh and Fit and whatever podcast, right? So yeah, maybe stop watching that stuff because it's really not helpful. But you know, listen to one of the audiobooks once a year or something, at least that, to keep it on the forefront of your mind so you don't fall back on that old programming, right? Oh, do the dopamine drug dealer laugh. All right, guys, that's all I got. Fucking camera. Tune into the podcast on Friday. We're going to be talking about breaking free from toxic content that is rotting your brain, which sort of goes hand in hand with what Dar Fitness says. Toxic black pill content, the news, conspiracy theories, murder mystery stories, all this stuff has you seeing the world from a negative lens that is poisoning your mind. One of the brothers in Wolfpack had an epiphany after last Friday's episode. So this episode is going to expand on those ideas, but from a less woo-woo perspective, because a lot of you guys just don't like fun. I don't get it. But anyways, that's all we got for this episode. Do be sure to like, subscribe, hit those notifications. I do have new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, even if my camera takes a shit in the middle of the podcast. All right. But that's all we got. We'll see you guys next time.
This has been the Come On Man podcast. Now, go out and get it.